All right, chat. So we're going to record a video right now. Here's what I'm going to do. This is a little bit of a different style of content that I've done, so obviously just give me like a second here on this one. We're going to talk about my thoughts on Season 9, where I see it, all of that. We're going to then talk about the blog post, and then what I'm looking forward to in Season 10. Does that sound good? All right, I hopefully, oh, wow, imagine if somebody in the chat asked me about my thoughts on Season 9. Wow, chat asking me about my thoughts on Season 9. What a great question. Wow, that came out of nowhere. So actually, we'll do a little bit of a summary of what was like Season 9, because I feel like Season 9 was one of those really important seasons for Overwatch. And what I mean by that is there was a lot that changed about the game. And a lot of the stuff that happened in Season 9 is things that Overwatch has kind of needed for a long time. And we'll start off with, like, first of all, the projectile changes, which have made the shots a lot easier to hit. I think there's been, like, mainly positive feedback on that, because I think the player point of view is probably enjoying just hitting more shots, right? Obviously, it can be a little bit, you know, some of the things can be a little bit scuffed at times. Obviously, as a tank, you feel that impact more, but I think overall, like, I don't mind the projectile change after playing it for a season. I think it made it a lot more... I feel like it made it a lot more exciting. I think it was nice. It's cool to see more shots being hit, and I didn't end up minding the change, and I'm actually okay with the change at this point. I think, like, it's in a situation now where, like, I'm fine with the projectile changes. I think they can obviously make other changes if they feel like something's becoming too much of an issue, but overall, I actually ended up liking it. And it's funny because, like, I didn't know what to expect at all. When I heard about the changes, it was like, wait, how is that actually going to play? How is that actually going to go? So I thought it was really cool to have that addition to Season 9, and I'm glad that, like, they were willing to make those aggressive changes. I think the most important thing, and maybe I'm wrong on this one, but I think also one of the most important things about the changes to Season 9 that made it really, like, exciting for me at least, was that they're willing to make aggressive changes when they were never willing to do that ever. So to see them be like, hey, now we're willing to make these shakeups to make the game more exciting, I like that, right? Doesn't mean that every time they make aggressive changes like this, it will be perfect, but I did like that they made those adjustments. So that was one thing I really enjoyed. I do want to circle back to the passive. DPS passive, obviously that's a little bit suspect still for tanks, the DPS passive, but I think it did what it was supposed to do for, like, the DPS duels and, like, being able to follow up on, like, supports and stuff like that. That was probably necessary. Obviously for tanks, it's been an issue, and that is a different thing of, like, something that I think they need to adjust. Another thing I did like about Season 9 also was them finally changing the rank system to make it so you get a bunch of information. Now, obviously, there's going to be issues with the rank system right now. And what I mean by that is you're going to have it say expected most of the time. But there's just something about being able to see that progress after every game than having to wait so many games in a row. Oh, that's what I was going to talk about. The overpowered health regen. That's what I was going to talk about. That I was thinking about two different passives. Let me circle back. I ended up loving how that passive went, because the initial reaction when Aaron made that tweet was, oh, we're going to add not the tweet. Aaron made a blog post saying, hey, we're adding a passive to the game where everybody will have a form of the support passive. And the initial reaction was like, hey, that's going to be awful. This is going to be terrible for Overwatch because now everybody's going to heal. Like, why are we doing this? Now, when we look back at that, Aaron then responded with, I probably should have put more context in this blog post, because basically Aaron was saying, it's not as good as you think it is, essentially. They didn't say that directly, but, like, that was basically when he said he needed more context. The passive ended up being a good quality of life change that I think just adds to Overwatch, and I don't mind it one bit. I do not mind the new passive one bit. The healing passive, that is. The one that, like, the tanks and the DPS now have after waiting 5 seconds. It's, like, it's just good to have in very, very, like, niche situations, so I don't mind that. Like, the initial reaction from people about the passive was like, oh, this is awful, this is gonna be terrible, and it ended up being pretty good. So that's always good to see. And then we move on to the ranked, as I was talking about. Like, I think with ranked, one thing I really did like about ranked was that you get that feedback now. Now, obviously, I think they need to fix some stuff. I think there's some UI issues there. Like, for example, rank protection, I think there's a little bit of a flaw to the rank protection, because you think you're getting protected from your rank, and you are from a D rank, but what it does is it gives you, like, a minus percentage. So let's say that you're at 1%, you lose your game, and it says D rank promote, D rank protection. You're like, okay, we have the D rank protection. This next game is so important. If I win this game, we're good to go. You win the game, and then you have 2%, and you go, what the? I just won that game and got 2%? Are you kidding me right now? Well, that's because they actually put you into the minus. So what it does is you have minus 18% in that rank. So when you go and win, the UI is showing you 1%, when in reality, the UI doesn't do that. So, like, I think that if they're going to do a rank protection, it either needs to be, like, you just don't derank, and then if you lose your next game, you lose, and you go back a rank, or if you win, you go back up, like, 20%, and then you're back to square one, right? Granted, I don't know how that affects the whole system in place, if that can heck with matchmaking, etc., but I think that just, like, from, like, a feedback point of view, they either need to fix the UI and let you know that, because it's not, it just isn't like a, I'd rather see myself lose that, or know I'm losing that 20% than like be surprised by the 40% D rank, and that's why the 40% D rank happens, because if you do lose that 2 games in a row, it takes the minus 18% and then adds 22% and then gives you minus 40%, and you're like, wow, that feels terrible. But on the flip side of things, I do like the overall change to ranked. I think that ranked has been more enjoyable from the feedback point of view. I mean, your ranked games are going to be your ranked games, right? How that's going to feel from a matchmaking point of view is going to be a little bit different. But, like, your ranked games are going to, like, the feedback at the end, I've enjoyed. I like it. It's not perfect, but it's not terrible, and I think it's a really good blueprint to build off of, in my opinion. I think having a really good blueprint like that is, like, super important for the game, and I think Season 9 was a very good blueprint season. They've established how they want to do stuff, and now they have things they can build off. So I really like that about Season 9. Good Mythic, too. I thought the Moira Mythic was really cool. I still want to point out that going into future seasons, there needs to be more customization. To these, I also would like to see them eventually look back at, like, heroes like Orisa and Hanzo and their Mythic skin and see if they can find ways to add a little bit more customization there. I feel like there was a little bit lacking in that scenario, but, like, yeah, I feel like the Moira one was good. Yeah, there was a lot of good things about Season 9 that I actually thoroughly enjoyed. Obviously, we can talk a little bit about the flip side of that. I do think Tank struggled this season. I think most Tank players will agree to that. I would have doubted if support players agree with that, because the supports are the ones who have to try to heal off the tanks. Tank was a bit of a struggle. Obviously, the role became a little bit more difficult to play. I still enjoy playing Tank, right? Like, I think, like, Tank in general is still really fun to play. It feels like at times you're just there to take damage, and then you can't catch up on heals again. And then you just fall over. So the Tank playstyle went from, like, okay, I can play multiple different ways, to either you're playing hide and seek / prop hunt, or you're playing, I'm just going to go feed, because if I stand here, I'm going to feed anyway, so I'm going to go play in their backline. But then, like, that's also not going to be as fun for your teammates, because then your tank has to, like, tanking is in a spot where there's a huge playstyle adjustment, but I think that there still needs to be some changes for Tank to, like, even, like, be able to, like, go with those changes. Like, you can't play a certain playstyle. Like, let me give you another example on this one too, where, like, you're like, hey, I need to play tank, I want to play cover, but then, like, the whole idea of the new tank playstyle is to play cover, but then you'll play a map like Shambali where there's no cover going on second point for half the time, and then they want you to push the cart, but then they can shoot you under the cart, right? So, like, they want you to have this cover-based playstyle, but then, like, half the maps, you can't even hide behind cover, because obviously the projectile changes, you're taking damage anyway, and then you go and push half the carts in the game, and they shoot you under the cart. You see what I'm saying? So, like, I feel like something I want to see going into Season 10 is more changes to tank. We have a blog post to read that kind of talks a little bit about that, and then we can kind of give my thoughts on Season 10 after that, because I think that'd be a good way to kind of segue into that. But I think definitely tank was... If you look at, like, some of we talked about a lot of the positive this season, I think a lot of players would be like, yeah, tank did not feel as fun this season because you lost a lot of that playmaking ability. And when you lose that playmaking ability, okay, you can say as a tank, like, you're there to, like, absorb damage for your team, etc. But the problem is that when you lose so much playmaking ability and your playmaking becomes, I'm here to take a bunch of damage and fall over and then run back from spawn, that isn't going to feel as fun as... I go in, I make a play, I force out some cooldowns, okay, I survive that, I can reset. You lose a lot of that reset time now, and then your supports have to sit there and try to get you back up 750 HP, and they just can't catch up on heals because you have 15% healing reduction coming from the DPS passive, which the DPS passive, in my opinion, worked really well for DPS versus DPS or DPS versus pocketed DPS, or even against a support. But for a tank, like, of course, most players are going to naturally shoot at the tank because the tank is the front and center, which means the tank will get less heals. You can never catch up on heals, and it means that your tank basically has to play the hide-and-seeker feed playstyle, which for most players, they won't enjoy that as much. You get what I'm saying? Anyway, I think what we do now is I'm going to go and read the blog post on kind of like talking about Season 10 a little bit that was just posted yesterday. We're going to give my thoughts on that and then give you kind of what I'm looking forward to in Season 10 and what I'm hoping for in Season 10. Does that sound good? All right, so just to continue on with what we were talking about, this is the blog post from yesterday. So now, this kind of talks a little bit what's coming to Season 10, and then we'll kind of give, after this, we'll kind of talk about what I'm looking forward to in Season 10. I might even do some of that in between, kind of reading this. But yeah, so Director's Take, welcome Adventure to Overwatch, who they are a very fun hero. Hello, it's been a while since my last blog, but we've been hard at work. Let's get right into it. First off, I am thrilled that you have welcomed our newest hero, Venture, to the lineup. Venture's ecstatic personality has charmed many of you, and you have already asked us so many questions about their backstory and personality. While I am unsure if they like to munch on rocks, confirmed by the voice talent, that Venture does, in fact, munch rocks. They have drilled their way to being the top-picked hero in Quick Play this past weekend, which I would hope they'd be I would hope that they were the top-picked hero in Quick Play this past weekend. Like, if you have a new hero and during the playtest and it's not the most picked hero, I don't know. You know what I mean? So, like, I'm just saying, like, I'm glad to hear that, but, like, I'd be very surprised. Like, it was our 5th most picked hero. We'll be revealing more about Venture's story and how they were developed shortly after Season 10 launches, which I can't wait to hear that. One of the biggest reasons so many of us instantly fell in love with Venture is the incredible voice talent of Valeria Rodriguez. Just to make sure I pronounced the name correctly. If I didn't, let me know. We instantly knew they were a hit when we saw how much energy they could put into their voice and how they matched Venture's personality perfectly. And if you've seen Twitter, if you've seen some of the streams, they've been playing with a bunch of streamers, having a good time. Just like, it's been really awesome to see. We're also thrilled that many of you have welcomed Valeria into our community, which has been very awesome. Which has been very awesome to see. People have been super kind. It's been really cool to see. So, watching all of your reactions from the hero trial, we're pretty happy with how Venture's initial kit turned out. The team was really happy with where Venture landed from a balance perspective during the trial, and it gave us confidence that they could release early into competitive, which I agree with. I mean, one of the things I saw with Venture at first was it obviously takes a little bit to figure out their play style, but like, one thing that I really like about Venture is just, it's one of those heroes that is so different, but also is so, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it just, they're just a part of Overwatch, and you can tell they're like, it's just a really cool hero that has like a unique kit. They're really, really fun to play. Like, they are super fun to play. And I agree that, like, there wasn't too much balance that needed to be changed. I don't know what the exact balance changes are going into Season 10, but this isn't like a Mauga or, like, Lifeweaver situation where, like, you needed to change so much about the hero to make that hero a lot more relevant. I think overall, it's just good change. You know, we'll see what the changes are, but overall, I don't think there needs to be too much. And I think that players who are good at the hero are going to be really obvious. It's going to be really obvious. So, we're still deciding how early, but we feel they are in a suitable state. Fun to play and fair to play against. While we don't foresee needing to make many changes to their kit, we're going to be listening closely to your thoughts on how Venture is doing in-game, which I think is fine. I think leading off with a very similar hero at the beginning of Season 10, in my opinion, than what we saw during the trial is not a bad thing. And I think that, like, I'd say let's see how the hero does in ranked, and if there's more changes after, that's fine, but I think overall the hero was really fun. We've heard a lot of feedback that you like the tempo up. Got tempo tank, tempo DPS. The tempo momentum Venture brings, being able to engage and disengage in fights. But we're looking at tweaking a few things for Venture at the start of Season 10. First, we're slightly shifting some of their burst damage from the drill dash and clobber, their melee, into damage over time. Actually, I like this change. I like this change, and I'll explain why. Because burst damage can feel frustrating, right? Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, people don't just, you get one shot and you're not just like, wow, that was fun. I hope I get burst damage immediately, right? And I think one thing you could argue is that sometimes with Venture, it felt like you got burst damage a lot. So taking some of that burst damage and putting in the damage over time still gives you the same amount of damage. It just allows for a bit more follow-up on that situation, which I think is probably fine. At the same time, I could be wrong, and that makes the hero way worse because players are reacting and keeping everybody alive way too much, and then they might have to kind of tone back on that one, right? Next, we're looking to reduce the vertical knockback of Tectonic Shock. I guess that makes sense. Alongside those minor changes to Venture, we have a number of other hero changes coming in Season 10. Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about what I'm hoping for in Season 10. We're going to be kind of all over the place with this one. My take on this one is tanks need changes going into Season 10. And I don't, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this one, too. I don't know if, like, just balance changes alone, like, will help with that. I think they need to look into, like, some of, like, the passive stuff from DPS or, like, find ways for tanks to take a little bit less CC. I think that's going to be a major issue. So, like, if they don't address that going into Season 10, tank could feel a little bit scuffed still. At the same time, if they're able to put fun buffs to the tanks and give the tanks a little bit more just, I guess, like, raw damage, maybe the tanks get a little bit more value and you can get more done because the other team has to play on their back foot a little bit more. But, yeah, I will say that if they end up not making many major changes to how the passive works and, like, the tank is still able to get kind of, not like bullied, like they're, you know what I mean? But like, the tanks are the punching bag right now, which, I mean, people will be like, well, tanks are the punching bag. Yes, but like, even more so than they've ever been. So it's, we'll see. Starting with our tanks, we're up in the impact of Junker Queen's Carnage. I mean, I'm not going to complain about a Junker Queen Carnage. Junker Queen's fun. If Junker Queen's the playable tank for Season 10, I'm not going to complain. And Reinhardt's Earth Shatter. Well, for Reinhardt's Earth Shatter change, does this mean that you're also going to be able to build an Earth Shatter? Because I think the major problem is, how do you get Rein to get Earth Shatter? That's the tough part here. It's not even about the shatters. Can you even get Shatter, right? Now, obviously, a bit of an over-exaggeration on that, but it's still pretty funny with that. You know what I mean? We'll see what that is. So both abilities cut through better in the post-Season 9 world. We'll see how that goes. Obviously, I don't know what you would do to Earth Shatter to make it, like, super strong or better, but, like, we'll see if that can help Rein. I mean, the first thing I think of is, like, let's say they just make it so Shatter's better. You know what I do? I just show you, can we just put a picture of Kiriko up on the screen? So unless they're making it invulnerable, right? I'll just show you a picture of Kiriko's Suzu. Anyway. The biggest tank changes coming into Season 10, though, are for Wrecking Ball. And this goes, just a little side note here. I am very curious to see if Tank will play the same way Tank plays all of Season 9. Because I think that you'll start to see people be a little bit more... You're going to start seeing people be more vocal about how Tank is feeling, especially if there isn't many major changes going into Season 10. And maybe it just takes time. Maybe the vision is that over time, players will start to figure out the new Tank play style, and Tank will feel great. But I also have a feeling that you're not going to get every player to want to play hide and seek as Tank. And obviously, there's going to be a bit of over-exaggeration there. But, like,
wow,
Tank is clearly struggling a little bit more. Not saying that they won't... It's just so hard. Without context of what the changes are going to be, and just to give you an idea, that's one thing I want to see going into Season 10 is a bit of Tank improvements. At the same time, I mean, as I was saying earlier in the video and what we were talking about, like, I've enjoyed Season 9. So, and that's as a Tank player. But I have flex queued a bit more. So we have Wrecking Ball changes. There are some great improvements to Wrecking Ball's grapple and hook, including the reduced cooldown when not entering ramming speed. Okay, I like that. And the ability to retract himself to where the grapple is attached by holding down primary fire or jump. I feel like they buffed this specifically for me. The amount of times I just get stuck off of a wall and I can't grapple back up, this is perfect. But that actually does sound really cool. I love the idea of that. I need to see how it looks, but I think that's also really cool. I feel like that's really cool, right? You know, yeah, you just being able to, like, grapple, like, retract back up. Like, that's pretty cool. Yeah, you like Spider-Man. I like that as a change. It's not, and that's a change I wouldn't even think of. You know what I mean? Like, when you sit there and you think about, like, a bunch of stuff, like, you don't think about that. There are also some changes to adaptive shields. Now, after using adaptive shields, you can reactivate the ability to transfer up to 300 overhealth to nearby allies. Capped at 75 overhealth per ally. You know, I kind of, you know what, though? I kind of like that. And it's either going to be terrible to play against or really fun. But, like, imagine this now. You can go in as Wrecking Ball. You can like, get maximum adaptive shields, come back, and then make a play with your team. That sounds pretty cool, right? I'm not saying, when I say it can feel terrible to play against, like, imagine if, like, you get Wrecking Balls who are able to go into the back line now with, like, a Genji who's getting armor packed by a Brig and then also gets overhealth from their Wrecking Ball, right? Like, you see that and you're like, oh no, there's some really cool things that you can do here. At the same time, if I say, like, that requires your Wrecking Ball to also play well, most of the chat's probably going, all right, we're good. You know, I looked at that on paper and it looked like it was going to be tough, but now that you say the Wrecking Ball still has to play very well, I'm fine. We're good now. Don't have to worry about that. I can't even get my Wrecking Ball to get back to me after their pile drive, so expecting them to come back with their shields, that ain't happening. But I like the idea of it. We'll see how it plays. We'll obviously test it on the first day when Season 10's released. But, like, I'm like, cautiously optimistic about this. Is that a good way to go about the Wrecking Ball change? I'm cautiously optimistic this makes Wrecking Ball have a bit more value. And I think this also, I talk about Wrecking Ball, where Wrecking Ball has this perceived value. And what I mean by that is that, like, sometimes players will think their Wrecking Ball's doing nothing, but it's because they can't see anything. So now having this adaptive shield change, it also kind of brings that perceived value closer to the team, because now it's like, oh, I can come in and give you some overshields, right? You can see that I'm getting this value, that I'm going in and I'm being able to build stuff. So it kind of adds to that. But like I said, a bit cautiously optimistic to see how it plays, but I think it's a good change. This change should give Wrecking Ball more capability of protecting his allies and initiating engagements, defining features of what we want to see in tanks. So, step in the right direction. We'll see how it plays, but I am cautiously optimistic. So, I still would have liked to see more information on tank changes. So that will be my biggest concern going into Season 10 is, like, can they get Tank back on track? And I'm not looking for Tank to become Tank of Season 1 Overwatch 2, right? Where Tank was just dominating. It's just making it so you have a little bit more playmaking. I think the playmaking ability of Tank has gone down a little bit. And I want to see a bit more of those slight changes. For our damage heroes, there will be some light adjustments for Sombra and Tracer. Sombra's virus damage has taken a small hit on the damage over time amount, 100 to 90, since the ability now has more upfront burst. Yeah, that's good. I mean, I think... and maybe some people will agree or disagree, but didn't it feel like sometimes Sombra didn't even need to, like, really do anything outside of just, like, hit the virus and, like, shoot, like, 2 bullets? So this kind of makes the Sombra have to shoot an extra bullet or 2, which sometimes that's the make or break between Sombra following up, right? I feel like there was less follow-up time, and this kind of is consistent with what they're doing with Venture. With Venture, their shift in Venture's, like, you know how Venture has that, like, burst damage capability? They're trying to... burst damage is not the most exciting thing to play against, and they're recognized now, which is good. Tracer has been quite strong since the Season 9 changes. She's one of the least touched heroes in Overwatch history. Her kit flows spectacularly well. What they mean by that is, like, Tracer just doesn't get nerfed a lot or changed a lot. We're looking at some light changes for her right now to make her slightly more punishable and require more precision. That's good. I mean, Tracer has clearly been an issue in a lot of games, and obviously it's going to be based off of multiple different variations of things, right? Like, to give you an idea, a Tracer in top 500 may get more value than a Tracer in bronze, so, like, the impact that Tracer can have in each rank will be different, but, like, I think we can all agree that a hero like Tracer with the new DPS passive and being able to get the value they get can be a little bit too much at times. So we'll see what they're doing with, though. We don't know what the change is. They don't put any specifics. All right, moving on to support. We are looking at shifts in power for Moira, Lucio, and Ayari. That's an interesting combo. Shifts in power. I'm trying to think. Basically, I was going to explain what it meant, but that means taking power from one part of their kit and funneling it into another. This is what they do sometimes to somewhat maintain the overall power budget of the hero. Ayari, for example, is receiving a slight nerf to her primary fire recovery time, 0.2 to 0.25. Okay, that's fine. But given more power back to her secondary fire heal and increase its HPS from 105 to 115. That's probably fine, right? Making it so you don't do as much damage output, you can't duel people as much, but you can heal more. I mean, that's what they're doing. I get it. There are also some light buffs for Lifeweaver as we continue to evaluate where healthy power can be injected into his kit. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Lifeweaver is fun. I don't want there to be a situation where they overtune Lifeweaver. I want them to be careful of, like, overtuning Lifeweaver a little bit, but overall, I'm okay with that. It's like, we'll see. Many of you may have seen the recent developer update this month, and we're just as excited as you are for those changes, including heroes no longer being locked behind the battle pass. We're incredibly excited about Season 10, and we've got some more changes that will make Overwatch more fun for everyone next season and throughout the year. We'll have another developer update coming out tomorrow, which will touch on things we're doing for competitive and updates on what we're doing to help make Overwatch a more safe and exclusive experience for everyone. So I hope you'll check it out. That's what I got for now. We can't wait to see all of you for jump into Season 10, which begins April 16th. Thanks, and let's make a great game. Now, first of all, I can't wait to see that video today, where that's going to be on, about, obviously, competitive, because we'll talk about that now. So we'll go a little bit into, like, the discussion about Season 10 and what I'm looking forward to. One thing I'm looking forward to in Season 10 is everybody gets the heroes again. I know that, like, some people might be like, oh, it's not a big deal. Oh, you could still earn the hero at level 45, etc. Just having it, your heroes be free to play now for everybody from the get-go, that's how you do it. I like that. I'm glad they've gone that route now. I'm glad to see it. I like that you can get mythics in previous season going into Season 10. For anybody who doesn't know what's going on, they're adding something called, like, the Mythic Shop, and basically you're going to earn, like, mythic prisms throughout the Battle Pass. I think on the premium track, that is. And then you can buy mythics in a mythic shop. You can buy different upgrades, etc. Like, it's a little bit different than how you would normally get a mythic, but now you can get a mythic from any previous season. So let's say that you missed out on the Genji one in Season 1, you now have the opportunity to be able to get Season 1, right? Get that hero in Season 1, etc. So I like that you're able to get that stuff now. And yes, you can earn coins in the Battle Pass now. I forgot the exact number. Was it like 600? So obviously that's going to be a good addition to where you'll be able to get more coins in the Battle Pass in comparison to what I don't think they had them in the Battle Pass. It was more like you would just get the Overwatch, like, regular coins, or you would get, you get them from, like, dailies and stuff. So it's good they have it in the Battle Pass now. I can't speak on balance for Season 10. Like I said, I'm looking forward to, like, tank changes. I think another thing that, like, I think is going to be super underrated, and I can't comment on it yet, but obviously we're going to be able to see that blog post today, because this was posted yesterday. I think it's going to be really cool to see, like, you being able to play with anybody in any rank. So there's a lot of concern there where, like, people are like, what about my games? Well, the way they're doing matchmaking now is they're making it so you have the ability just to play with your friends of any rank, and it requires other people to play that same thing that's happening. So let's say that I'm top 500, I say, hey, chat, let's queue up 4 bronzes. The only way we're going to get a game is if somebody else is doing top 500 with 4 bronzes, right? But having the option to do that now, and having the option to be able to play with your friends in ranked, especially where Overwatch has been a game that has kind of prevented you from being able to play with your friends, this is the most you'll ever be able to play with your friends ever in Overwatch, in the sense that, like, you can actually queue up with your friends now. Now, this is also going to come down to how many people are doing this. I think in a lot of, like the medal ranks, you'll probably see people be able to enjoy this a bit more, because, like, you know, you might be in plat and your new friend just got the game is in bronze and in silver, but you can now play with them, right? And you can now get into rank games with them and then play against people at similar skill level. And in doing so, this also opens up the solo queue players who won't have to deal with going up against these stacks and these players that are playing these, like, long ranges, because your rank is going to be different, right? You're going to have essentially 2 different matchmakings happening within the same system, right? So I actually think it's going to be super underrated, and I think it could end up being really good for Overwatch. I'm back to kind of that cautiously optimistic about it, but I am looking forward to the option to be able to do this, and we'll reevaluate this as we get closer to the mid-season of Season 10 with how queue timers are, how your rank games feel, but I think it will be good. Keep in mind, we assume that the queue times could be an hour long. We don't know how much of the player base is going to use that system. As far as we know, this could become the dominant way that people play games now, right? It could become to the point where, like, it becomes more people play the game this way than the other way, right? Because you start being able to play with your friends more. You can introduce your friends to Overwatch more, right? Right? You could be like, hey, you haven't played Overwatch in a year, and they're like, oh yeah, I want to play, but, like, I don't want to play quick play, I want to play ranked. Well, now they can play with you, right? And yeah, there might be queue times and things like that, and like I said, I think this is also, maybe I'm wrong on this one, maybe add a way for people to be able to queue up for hero mastery in their stacks now. Like, give people the option to do stuff in between the queue if they're going to do that. So what if it pulls a solo bronze player? It won't. It's not going to do that. That's not... Their system is going to be, like, as far as I understand, is it's going to... If you have a solo... If you 4 people queue up and there's a solo player, it's going to give you a solo player of each of the rank of the same person. So it's not going to just sit there and, like... And keep in mind, I can't speak for that, though, at the same time. Like, I am going based off of assumption of how this is going to work, and maybe the video today that they're going to have, or the developer update, will give more context to that, because, like, without that context, I can't do that. And maybe we should add that to this video. Actually, I don't know. We'll probably do a separate video on it, but, like, I need the context of that. But I think it's going to be an underrated thing that will fall under the radar of Season 10, and then it will become a big discussion point as we start to see more and more of that stuff being played. Do you get what I'm saying? It should work 1-to-1, exactly. And that's why there's concern on queue times. At the same time, I just won't know any of how it's going to work until we actually play it, right? So I'm excited for it. I'm also going to, like I said, be cautiously optimistic to kind of see where it ends up. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect. I'm not saying it's going to be terrible. I think it could be pretty good with that. So if I queue with a 4 bronze, will the other team have a top 500 tank or just anywhere in the team? Probably anywhere in the team is my guess. So we'll look for anyone who's playing top 500 with 4 bronzes. We'll see how it goes, but I'm glad they're adding something in place now to kind of help with that, right? Because you've always heard, like, we always complain that we can't play with our friends. Having the option now to be able to play with our friends in ranked and be able to stack is something I'm really excited about, because I would love to be able to play with, friends. Heck, let's say that, like, somebody I know who plays Apex comes over and wants to play Overwatch, but, they're in, like, Diamond, and I'm like, hey, I can show you, we can show you the ropes of some Overwatch. Now we can bring them into a stack, introduce them to Overwatch, right? Have some fun. And it's not going to also, like, hurt, like, the integrity of the game at the same time by being like, oh, I have to log on. We all have to log on alt accounts just to play with you, right? So, like, there's things that I really like the idea of, and I love to see where it's going to go. Now, granted, we'll get more information today, but that's my initial thoughts on that. I think it'll be really cool. Obviously, we're going to have the Porsche. And keep in mind, that's how you pronounce it, by the way. I know that in America we say Porsche a lot, but apparently it's pronounced Porsche. I'm looking forward to seeing that little, like, it's cool to see little collabs like that in the game. Obviously, and we don't know yet, but if it is the Mercy Mythic, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be excited about the Mercy Mythic. Just saying. Oh yeah, I keep forgetting, we get the Test Clash at the we get the Test Clash. So Clash is the new game mode that's going to be coming out, and at the beginning of Season 10, I think at the beginning of Season 10, we're going to be able to test out the new game mode. So that's going to be exciting to try, too. I'm looking forward to that. So a lot to look forward to Season 10. Like I said, my biggest concern is still going to be tanks going into Season 10, but, like, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm like, it's one of those seasons where, like, it's very important that they do Season 10 very well. I think it's really cool they're going to be doing something like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, going into, like, yeah, but we'll see. Like, Season 9 was really good, in my opinion. Now, Season 10 needs to match that, because Overwatch is in a spot where people are interested again, right? They did something that people were like, wow, they did it again. People are interested in Overwatch. Well, now, if you want to keep that, and you want to keep people really enjoying it, they have to have a very similar effect to Season 10. Now, it's not going to feel as aggressive as Season 9 because there was major changes, but, like, even if they give you 85% of that, it's going to be a great season. And that's what we're hoping for. Obviously, as a streamer, a YouTuber, TikToker, etc., I'm generally going to be a bit biased in these discussions sometimes because obviously, it does great for me if it does well. But I do think overall Season 10 should be good on paper. Everything sounds like it will be good. We got a new hero. We get to try out the new mode. We have a new style of rank that you can play within it. There's probably going to be even more changes coming to that. Everything is aiming towards it being a good season and beyond, based off of everything we saw with, like, the developer update and, like, Aaron. Everything sounds like it's going in the right direction. More stuff coming in general. So I'm excited for Season 10. We'll go with cautiously optimistic because I think it's good to kind of go about that route to start, and then we can kind of see where we're at kind of mid-season with Season 10 and how I feel about it. So, let me know if you like videos like this, all right? Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about Season 10 or Season 9. Have an amazing day /night.